For the past few months, I've been developing a game which is intended to distill the feeling of exploring a large open world down into a tiny bite-sized game that fits well onto a mobile device. It's based entirely around the positive feedback loop of finding something new, leveling up your character, and taking on gradually tougher areas. So to this end, I've put gameplay above everything else. And honestly, I do feel like it's sort of getting there. But I'm intending to get this game working on both mobile and desktop, which presents an interesting challenge of how the input system works. The input scheme for desktop is so fundamentally different from mobile that I almost wonder how on earth this game is ever going to work. Not to mention that I'd also like to have suitable support for controllers. Would I have to butcher the mobile port with weird virtual joysticks, or perhaps ruin the desktop version with a scaled up user interface? This is a game design problem, not a technical one, so I felt like I had to deal with the problem as soon as possible in the development cycle of the game. How hard can it be? Hello there. Another day, another whatever this is, programming. Okay, so I'm trying to emphasize input relative to something like a touch device would work. So I'm experimenting with a system where you can tap on an enemy and the player will just automatically walk over to it and try and destroy it. So here we go. Yay. So the movement that happens there, it's not actually an animation, that is literally a glitch. So he kind of walks over and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So at the moment he really just performs an area attack. So I think the impression I get is that it's going to be a combination of physical moves as well as special moves that you get down here. So you would get like the bog standard moves that take place down here, but then you can also do these area attacks when they're done with a recharge. So I just need to clean that up and also make sure that it doesn't crash. Okay, so some decisions I've made, you see these items down the bottom. I think I'm just going to completely de-emphasize them entirely. I don't think that's how I'm going to be using the items going forwards. I think they're probably just going to be something different. This was sort of left over from the previous system. I don't think it fits into the new one quite as well. So this down here now becomes what we in the business refer to as free real estate. Let's get rid of it. So some changes have obviously been made. I've moved the buttons up to the top. Now, the thing you've got to remember about this is that this is the mobile interface. This isn't how I imagine it's going to look on the desktop. The reason they're at the top is because of the way that thumbs and hands work. To me, it's way more ergonomic. When played on desktop, this thing is going to look completely different. Now, the thing you've got to remember is that with these changes, I think I'm far more likely to be able to do a nice 1920 by 1080 display of the window, and everything will just work like that. So I'm planning to do that sooner or later. I'm trying to emphasize actually playing the game a bit more on a mobile device, so I'm going to take the opportunity to show you that now. So part of the reason I shifted the controls down to the bottom of the screen is because it's far more ergonomic this way. The thing is, it's actually quite nice to control the character with these this flag system. I'd quite like to experiment with different user interface designs as well for things like desktop, so we'll have to see. Right, so I'm just experimenting with some different layouts for the interface. So I'm looking at it more from the perspective of how would I expect the desktop game to play. So previously it was just a mobile game on the desktop, but now I've kind of resized it in a way that it kind of looks a bit more like something you'd expect from a desktop game. So this is full 1920 by 1080, and I kind of like it, it's alright. So things like the buttons are at the top here. Obviously I've got this issue where it still places flags, and this sizes accordingly. With the exact same code base, this is what the same thing looks like on mobile, so it resizes itself automatically, so that's quite good. Now of course I need to make sure that the interface makes sense on mobile, not just that it's playable and the port exists. It has to actually be fun on both platforms and it has to be playable. So that's kind of the idea. Hey. Right, sort of late in the evening, so here's a quick demo of what I've got today. So I've been working on different control schemes and general changes to the game. So you can obviously notice that you've now got a freeform camera. That's strange, there wasn't one of those before. So I'm trying to see how much of a difference this actually makes to the game. And it's quite an interesting one really. So the way it works currently, I can use WSD to rotate the camera around the player like this, and I can also go up and down. The actual walking to the clicked location works the same as before. It feels a bit like RuneScape, and you can just use the attacks same as before, so that's nice. I think I'm probably going to change the buttons to trigger based on numbers rather than the arrow keys. Just so you can have one hand on the mouse, one hand on the keys. You can also zoom in and out like this. Now that looks cool. So it's an interesting change, and I think with a bit more variety, it does make sense. The question is really how it works on mobile. What I've yet to do is get the touchscreen controls working to be able to zoom in and out of the map, so that's going to be the next job. Do you ever have a moment in a project where you feel like everything is just sort of coming together at once? Because I feel like I've just had that. So again, I'm spending lots of time trying different input methods. So one I've sort of using is this more free camera approach. And I've found that actually it's quite decent. You can move the player character around like this. You can do your attacks like so. And yeah, I mean, the game is actually fairly playable because I think you can kind of understand how the exploration would work. I obviously have plans to include more stuff than just walking to different houses, but you can see practically everything you need in the world. I mean, you've got enemies, you've got things to find. The combat system is largely approach enemies, whack them, and you've got a combination of moves that you can use. So I think with some improved moves and a lot more variety, it could be very interesting. So the way that the camera works is that we've just got this button down the bottom that you can press, and from that you can just wiggle the camera around. So it kind of becomes a game of observing your surroundings, seeing what's there, and just going off, finding stuff, going through the motions. Well, there you go, it crashed again. In terms of controller then, essentially it's as you might expect. One stick does camera and the other does movement. I've still got some improvements to be made. For instance, if I press upwards here, you'd expect it to go in the direction the player's facing, but it doesn't do that. So yes, I'm actually quite pleased with that. I'm glad I went through the motions of just scrap everything as much as I need to and just try and find what's fun, because otherwise I don't think I would have stumbled upon this gameplay approach. It's a completely different game to what I had starting April. If you ask me, I think it's a better game. So, I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Hey! Here's a quick outline of things I've done for the past little while. I didn't record anything yesterday because I was just working, so here's a quick outline of a few of the things I've done. So I fiddled with some of the materials so the world looks a little bit brighter now. I've also got this hover over effect, so it'll tell you some information when you hover over an enemy. I'm not so sure I like that one. It didn't really come out looking how I thought it would, but whatever, trial in progress. But one of the things I've now got is I've got an indicator for which enemy is being targeted. So that's quite nice. And that involved me redoing some of the code, to get it properly animated and stuff like that. I've also started work on this sort of player status indicator thing, so it's a health bar, but it's also going to tell you other things like, I don't know, health points, XP, total number of stuff, that sort of thing. So it's going to be a bit of an everything bar at the top. It's worth pointing out that that is also included in the mobile port, so you can see it just sort of sticks itself up at the top. I'm designing it in a way where all of the sort of status stuff goes at the very top, so that means that when you're holding it like this, you don't have to really reach up to get to it. All the useful stuff is just down the bottom. So that is really the intention. And I've actually been playing the game before I go to sleep on mobile, so I'm actually really quite pleased with how it's shaping up on mobile. I think it looks fantastic. The thing is, I was very concerned about the whole free moving camera thing because I didn't think it would be that optimized. And the voxel world as it is at the moment is completely unoptimized. I mean, it's just a travesty. So it could be improved quite significantly, and I'm still able to hit 60 frames with it. So yeah, I'm quite pleased about that. I mean, what that means is that when I come to have more enemies or just more stuff going on, then I'm not really going to have to think maybe too hard about performance, but not to say I won't think about it because it is a mobile device. What I mean is that I won't necessarily be limited by certain things. It's just nice to be able to play it when it's in your hand, it's nice. I like it. So I'm feeling quite good about it at the moment. Anyway, so I think the remaining work for this week is just going to be on the controller support side of it. Of course, it does work there already, but some of the things, they're just rough edges. Like actually orientating the camera is a bit of a nightmare at the moment. So yeah, I'm pleased with how it's going. So let's cut to me having fixed that now. Hey, I just got back from the pub, so I'm moderately steaming, but still fairly lucid. I just thought I'd spend some time in the evening doing some Steam Deck work to show you what the game looks like on a platform that isn't just, the desktop where everything runs. What's going on over there? Oh, look at him going. See, look at that. Does that look like an authentic Steam game to you? I don't think it does. It looks like some sort of shenanigan that I've just cooked up in the final moments to try and get the game to run on the Steam Deck. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? Oh my god! Is that some sort of game? Can you control it? Hang on. Okay. It doesn't work properly. Okay, so you can use moves. I don't know why it crashes all the time, but it does. Let's try it in desktop mode. What is that? KDE Plasma, my least favorite desktop environment on Linux. Right, are we ready for this, chaps? Personally, I don't think you're ready, but we'll find out over a period of time, won't we? Let's do it. Exec format error. Does that make any sense? Okay, well, it opened it in the bloody text editor. What a disgrace. Right, let's get this boy into the terminal. In you go, lad. In you go. Whee! Is he running or not? Go on, go on. You can do it. Oh! It runs surprisingly well on desktop, actually, which maybe doesn't bode well for the state of the I don't know what the other one is, but hey! Oh, I just realised my lights weren't on the whole time. We just whack these lads on. Oh, that's way too bright. Oh! Let me just tell you, it wasn't as straightforward as you might be thinking. Because you're probably out there thinking, well, it's just a desktop PC, after all, so surely it would be easy just to get it running on this thing. Well, it wasn't that easy. As much as it does run Arch Linux, which generally tends to be quite malleable in terms of how you can get it to work, Valve does their own things, seemingly, so certain bits just didn't work on it. I ended up having to compile the engine on my laptop and then export it as an app image, if you know what that is. It's like a wrapper thing, and then ship it onto the Steam Deck, and then it worked. Because the Steam Deck was complaining that it didn't have like the X11 libraries, and it's like, well, I just installed them. Like, I installed them through Arch Linux repository thingamajig. But yeah, I think Valve did all sorts of oogie boogie to the root file system, because you have to run this special command in order to be able to write it, so that's kind of weird. On top of some other things, like apparently some of the packages were hedonized in order just to get them to run on like a small enough image size to fit on the Steam Deck, so they didn't have to spend too much time fiddling with large binary sizes. So yeah, I'm about to dual wield the game, just like how God intended it, with God in this case I suppose being me. Is it still going? Yeah, I guess it is. I can't really see what I'm doing. I've got no idea what I'm doing. Well, I think you know what I'm on about. It kind of works on two devices. That's pretty cool. So before I finish this episode, please just let me say, look at this cross-platform game that I've just developed. Now you may be thinking, wow, how on earth did you manage to do that? And the answer is, your continued support, of course. What's that text that just appeared on the screen of the Steam Deck that you should be paying very close attention to? Anyway, this video's gone on for long enough, so thanks for watching. See you in the next one.